The snow had been falling since morning, thick, heavy flakes drifting like feathers shaken from the sky. Mark Benson tightened the fraying scarf around his neck as he stepped out of the small general store, the cold wind nipping at the corners of his tired eyes. He carried only a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, and a few cans of soup, barely enough to stretch through Christmas Eve and the next day, but exactly what his pocket could afford. Being a single dad meant every penny had a purpose. Being a poor single dad meant those pennies were always running short. His 8-year-old son, Liam, was waiting for him at home, probably pacing near the small heater and staring at the cheap plastic Christmas tree they'd bought from a second-hand shop. Liam had wrapped a single gift for him, a drawing folded carefully, and Mark had done his best to wrap a thrifted book for the boy. That was their Christmas. Just the two of them together. No luxury, no feast. But love, real love, lived in that cramped apartment. As Mark stepped onto the quiet street, he saw the lights of downtown glowing faintly under the snowfall. People hurried past carrying bags filled with last-minute gifts, warm pastries and the scents of cinnamon, roasted almonds and joy he couldn't afford. He didn't envy them, not really. What he wanted most wasn't money. It was stability, something he hadn't felt since the accident that took his wife away 3 years ago. Since then, every day was a battle. Every night a conversation with guilt, and every winter a reminder that life was far harsher without someone holding your hand through it. He adjusted the grocery bag and trudged forward until he noticed movement near the corner of the old post office building. At first he thought it was just someone trying to escape the cold. But then he saw a small figure waving frantically. A child. Then he saw them clearly. A young woman, no older than 25, sat on the frozen sidewalk, bundled in a thin coat completely unfit for winter. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, her eyes red from cold and what looked like hours of crying. And beside her, 2 small children. Twins, maybe 5 years old. A boy and a girl huddled under a single blanket, their cheeks flushed red and their noses runny from the freezing air. In front of them was a cardboard sign written in shaky letters. "Please, any food, we haven't eaten since yesterday." Mark stopped. His heart clenched. Something inside him, maybe the father in him, refused to walk past, refused to pretend he hadn't seen them. He stepped closer. The mother looked up, startled, as if afraid he would yell at her the way some heartless people do. The boy clung to her sleeve. The girl shrank behind the blanket. "Hey," Mark said softly, lowering himself so he didn't tower over them. "Are you all right? Do you need help?" The woman nodded weakly but didn't speak. She looked exhausted, as if even forming words took too much energy. Mark opened the grocery bag and pulled out the loaf of bread. "Here," he said. "Please take this." Her eyes widened with disbelief. I can't," she whispered. "You need it. You have a family. I saw you go inside." Mark gave a tiny smile. "My son and I will manage. Your kids need to eat." The twins stared at the bread like it was treasure. The mother's hands shook as she accepted it. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Mark hesitated, studying them. Something was wrong beyond hunger. The mother wasn't just cold or hungry. She was frightened, terrified, as if she were running from something. He gently asked, "Do you have somewhere to go? A shelter?" She shook her head quickly. No shelters. No police, please. We just need to stay hidden. Just for tonight." "Hidden?" Mark's stomach tightened. What was she afraid of? Who was she hiding from? Before he could ask, the little boy tugged on his sleeve. "Mister, can you tell Santa we still been good? Mommy said he might not find us 'cause we don't got a house no more." Mark swallowed hard. That hit deeper than he expected. "I'm sure Santa knows exactly where you are," he said, forcing a steady voice. "And he never forgets good kids." The girl peeked from behind the blanket. "Are you a nice person?" she whispered. Mark blinked at the innocence in her question. "I try to be." The mother suddenly covered her face with one hand, her shoulders shaking. Silent tears. Mark couldn't walk away. He wouldn't. "Listen," he said gently. "There's space at my apartment. It isn't much, but it's warm. And safe. You can spend the night. Just one night. No questions if you don't want to answer." The woman looked up sharply, eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. Why would you help us?" Mark exhaled slowly. "Because someone helped me once. When I had nothing, And because no one deserves to be on the street on Christmas Eve. The twins stared at their mother waiting. She finally nodded. And with that simple, shaky nod, Mark unknowingly stepped into a truth that would shake him, change him, and leave him stunned beyond anything he had faced before. A truth that connected them in ways he could never have imagined. A truth that would explode on Christmas Day. The night settled thick and silent over the city, blanketing the streets in a cold quiet that felt like it might never end. Inside Mark Benson's small apartment, the warmth from the heater was a fragile shield against the bitter winter outside. The soft glow of the Christmas tree lights flickered gently in the corner, casting long shadows that danced across the cramped room. Mark watched as the mother, whose name he now knew was Sarah, sat on the worn couch. The twins nestled close to her side. Liam sat on the floor nearby, clutching his gift but completely transfixed by the strangers in his home. The room was tight, but for the first time in weeks, the air seemed lighter, filled with a fragile hope. "Thank you," Sarah whispered again, her voice cracking under the weight of exhaustion and relief. Mark shook his head. "No thanks needed, just rest. Tomorrow we'll figure everything out." The twins' eyes were heavy with sleep, their small bodies sinking into Sarah's arms. Liam crawled closer, offering a half-eaten cookie from the small stash Mark had hidden away. The boy smiled shyly and accepted it, the simple exchange bridging the distance between their worlds. Mark leaned against the wall, his thoughts swirling. The woman was clearly hiding from something terrible. She hadn't come for charity. She had come seeking refuge. But what and why? Finally, unable to hold back, Mark asked, "Sarah, what happened to you? To your family?" Sarah's eyes glistened with tears, but she nodded as if she had decided to trust him. "It started months ago," she said softly. "My husband, he wasn't a good man. Not the one I thought I married. He drank, he was violent. The day Liam's age. He hit me so hard I lost the baby." Her voice faltered. Mark's heart ached at the pain behind those words. "I left, I took the twins and ran. But he found us. The police wouldn't do anything without proof. I couldn't stay, so I kept moving, hiding, hoping to find a way to start over." "And tonight?" Mark asked. She swallowed hard. "Tonight? I had nowhere left to go. No money, no friends. The shelter was full. And I was scared he'd find me again." Mark clenched his fists. He hated that anyone, especially a mother with children, had to live like this. He looked down at Liam, who was now quietly watching the twins sleep. "You're safe here," he said firmly. "No one will hurt you." Sarah nodded, tears streaming silently now. Hours passed, and the city's noise faded to a distant hum. Outside, the snow had stopped falling, leaving the world coated in white. Inside, a fragile family was forming, bound by kindness and desperation. But fate was not yet done with them. Near midnight, the faint sound of footsteps echoed outside the apartment. Sarah stiffened, eyes wide with fear. Mark moved quickly to the window, peering into the darkness. A shadow lingered beneath the flickering street lamp, tall, imposing. "Stay here," Mark whispered. He opened the door just enough to peek out. The man from the street, a figure Sarah had been running from, stood there, his breath visible in the cold air. "Sarah!" the man called, his voice rough and cold. Mark's blood ran cold. He closed the door quietly. "Who was that?" Liam asked, sensing the tension. Sarah shook her head, clutching the twins tighter. "He's the reason we can't stay." Mark's mind raced. He couldn't let this man hurt them. He made a decision. "I'm going to call the police," he said. "This ends tonight." Sarah nodded, but the fear in her eyes told Mark the system had failed her before and might fail her again. As Mark reached for his phone, the doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected. Mark's heart pounded. He opened the door slowly. A middle-aged woman stood there holding a folder. "I'm Detective Collins," she said calmly. "We've been looking for Sarah and her children. We want to help." Mark blinked in surprise. "Help?" The detective nodded. "We've had reports of abuse, and tonight we received a tip about her location. You've done well bringing them in." Relief washed over Sarah, and the twins stirred awake, sensing safety. Mark exhaled deeply. The nightmare was beginning to lift. But the truth, the real truth, was about to shatter everything they thought they knew. The first light of Christmas morning filtered softly through the thin curtains, illuminating the small apartment with a gentle glow. Mark Benson woke slowly, the warmth of the heater humming, nearby a sharp contrast to the biting cold that had plagued the city just hours before. He looked across the room where Sarah sat quietly, her arms wrapped protectively around the twins, their soft breaths rising and falling in peaceful slumber. Liam was still asleep on the couch, clutching the drawing he had made for Mark. Last night had felt like a turning point, as though the heavy clouds of fear and hunger that had shadowed their lives were finally beginning to part. Mark's phone buzzed softly on the kitchen table. It was a message from Detective Collins. "We have arranged safe housing and support for Sarah and the children. They will not have to fear anymore." Mark smiled quietly. At least for now, things seemed to be looking up. As Sarah and the twins began to stir awake, Mark made coffee and pulled out the few gifts he had wrapped the night before. Liam's eyes lit up as Mark handed him the thrifted book, and Sarah's voice was filled with gentle gratitude as she accepted the warm clothes and food Mark had managed to find. But beneath the surface of this fragile peace was a deeper truth that was about to unfold. Mark sat down with Sarah to talk quietly, determined to understand everything and to help however he could. "Sarah, I know last night was hard, but we're here now. You don't have to hide anymore." Sarah nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "Thank you, Mark, for everything." "You didn't have to help us." Mark shook his head. "No one should be alone on Christmas, no one." She hesitated, then looked down at the twins. "There's more," she said softly. "More than I told you. My husband, he wasn't just violent. He was dangerous. Connected to people I don't want to speak of. People who don't care if he hurt me or the kids. I fled to protect them and myself." Mark listened carefully, feeling the weight of her story settle around them like a heavy cloak. "But you're safe now," he assured her. "The police will protect you." Sarah smiled faintly but added, "It's not just the police. There's someone else. Someone who's been watching. Someone who helped me last night." Mark frowned. "Who?" Before Sarah could answer, there was a knock at the door. Mark opened it cautiously. Standing there was a tall, broad-shouldered man in a warm coat, his eyes kind but serious. "Morning," the man said. "I'm David, a friend of Detective Collins. She asked me to check on you all and make sure you're safe." Sarah's face lit up with relief. "Thank you." David stepped inside, setting down a bag filled with supplies, blankets, clothes, toys for the kids. Mark watched the exchange, feeling the first glimmers of hope since the long, cold journey had begun. Later that day, Mark and Sarah sat together while the children played nearby. "We're going to get through this," Mark said firmly. "Together." Sarah nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "You saved us, Mark. I don't know how to thank you." He smiled. "Just keep believing. That's enough." As the sun set on Christmas Day, the snow still thick outside, Mark felt a quiet peace settle within him. The kindness of strangers, the power of hope, and the strength of family, both, chosen and born, had turned what seemed like the darkest night into a dawn full of promise.